All right, what is up, everybody? Keith Jameson, Go Back Guy 231 across the DFS industry. And we are back, week 2 of EPL. My voice is, I hope that this microphone in the car is working. You're not just hearing the irresistible horsepower of the Toyota Highlander hybrid. But if the microphone is working well and it's not overpowering, hopefully my voice is much better than last week when I was just coming off of COVID. Feeling much better, so thank you for those that reached out and were asking. But we got a lot right. Looking forward to this weekend. I should say I'm looking for this week, but we are back to Man City Roulette. And this time it's Man City Roulette with Erling Holland. Probably the majority of this video is going to be talking about that. But yeah, it's going to decide the slate. Man City's a minus 1,667 favorite, which at that point, once you get that high, it doesn't actually matter anymore. It's like a lot to a little, right? So we'll just be talking about how to handle that. And I think ultimately how you handle that is going to decide whether you cash on the slate or not. So just a quick reminder, like, subscribe, and comment on the videos. It all really helps. If you're on the pod station, please feel free to subscribe there. Leave a review. All that good stuff helps us continue to grow this channel. Give you all sorts of free content out there across sports. And then finally, if you are interested in a little more content behind the paywall, core plays for pretty much every single soccer slate on Draftkings is provided by myself and Tendril Storm. Also give you the set pieces for every game, so it takes a load of your research off. Great chat room, so definitely suggest trying it out. All right, let's get into the games. Enough selling. Not enough talking about my Highlander, all that good stuff. All right, Bournemouth going to City, minus 1,667. Probably minus 2,000 by kickoff. I'm going to make the argument, could be very wrong, but I think Erling Haaland more of a lock than KDB. And let me just go over the reason why. Here's the reality. Both are probably 80%. I was like going into lineup building trying to okay, I'm going to be like different and going to build without KDB. And I think the only way that you do it, I'm going to jump ahead a few games, but the only way you do it is to fit in James Ward-Prowse, who I actually love too, who I think in a vacuum, and like a really powerful vacuum to get minus 2,000 favorite City out of it, but in a vacuum, I think James Ward-Prowse's floor, just pure floor, take out goals or assists, is better. But the more I've thought about it, and planning mentally what I was going to say here, I just think there's just way too much equity, goal equity, assist equity, just 50-point equity in KDB that you probably just have to fit Holland and KDB and then move on. So that's what I'm going to do and what I'm going to recommend. It's just the first two, just plug it. Don't overthink the odds. Don't overthink how dominant City is going to be versus a newly promoted Bournemouth, who's just not that great if you look from the top to down. And this is the same Bournemouth team that I loved last week in GPPs that I thought was, had just a number of plays that stood out, and it was the first game bounce. But I think this could just be very much a return to earth. Holy crap, we're in the EPL and we're about to get stomped by potentially the best EPL team ever. I think the City, as big of a Liverpool fan as I am, I think this City team with Holland, if they get everything rolling, they're going to be dangerous. So I like both Holland and KDB. Shocker there, but I think they're just too good to pass on. I think the real question becomes is how much City you're going to do. Jack Grealish at 6,900 is really cheap. He had a good floor game, first game out, almost 10 floor. It was interesting to see no Mahrez. I think Mahrez very well could be back. And if that's the case, I think you're still playing KDB, but the question becomes is do you just jam in Holland, Mahrez, KDB, and have no salary left, but you go, look, I'm going to put all my chips on blue, right? Man City blue here. And if they score 5 goals or they score 4 goals, there's a really good shot that I might be sitting on 80, 90 points already. And if I can get any of my punts right, I'm very much in the game. So, because Mahrez would split sets with KDB. And, we know Mahrez when he's in is just really, really, really good. I think that rotation up front. So it's either Mahrez comes in for Grealish or Mahrez comes in for Foden. I do think that Mahrez probably gets to start here the more I'm thinking about it. So, yeah, that's going to take your salary up. I think Cancelo is a great play, obviously. I think that you're really starting to run flat on salary, and defender is going to be one of the places that you definitely can save on the slate. So, maybe he's in like a stack lineup. Maybe he's in a contrarian lineup where you do end up fading KDB or fading Holland. I really do think, though, if I make no other point other than this rambling with Manchester City, I do think that KDB is more fadeable than Holland just because midfield has a lot of depth to it. Forward does not. And I do think that, I just don't see Holland not scoring, at least one, if not two goals here. If you tell me that City wins 4-0 and KDB doesn't have any part of it, that's not as shocking to me as if it's 4-0 and Holland has no part. So I guess that's where I'll stand. Rest of City, they're all in play, but I really think that it's those two. Mahrez is maybe, potentially, if he's in, you could argue maybe him over KDB. I think that's a fair argument. And then everybody else in the tier below. Nobody in Bournemouth side. We're going to avoid Bournemouth on a 5-game slate as that big of a dog. All right, let's move on to the next game. Leicester going to Arsenal. Arsenal looked really good, but Arsenal, funny enough, did not look great for DFS. Martinelli and Saka are splitting sets. I think because of where they both are priced and because of the existence of Manchester City in the slate, it kind of takes almost all the Arsenal pieces out. Zinchenko is really good as a left wing back. He's not crazy good, though, crossing the ball. Just more of a tackler still. So I think Arsenal, they're fine for GPP if you think they can take advantage of a Leicester defense, which looks spotty to say the least, up back to last season, right? Especially if tonight or something comes out and Fofana isn't in, that could really be an edge. But I think Arsenal's just a GPP team. Same deal with Leicester. James Maddison is who you want, but it's just not the slate for him. So, Leicester and Arsenal GPP targets only. Let's go to Leeds going to Southampton. I do think that James Ward-Prowse, as I mentioned, is by far my second favorite midfielder on the slate. It's just fitting him with KDB and with Holland is going to be really tough. At that point, if I'm trying to jam all three, I'm more likely to try to just jam another City piece and just go, I'm just looking for City to win 5-0 here. I'm going to try to grab all the goals, and that could make some sense. But James Ward-Prowse, it's going to pain me for 2 straight slates to not play him. I would love him in GPP just because I think, despite the fact that he's a cash play in floor, he scores so many direct free kicks, gets so many assists, and just in this matchup at home to Leeds, I'm penciling him in for 10 Draftkings points. Now, if you get a goal or assist, now you're into the Yahtzee zone. So I think he's a great pivot off of KDB. I think in cash, it's got to be KDB, and if you can fit both, if the opportunity opens itself to fit more, we have a min-price fullback on top of some cheap forwards here. I'm going to talk about Southampton. If we can make it there and one more, I have one lower price ticker I'll be talking about in the final game from Fulham. But if everything opens up and I can fit those three, then I want to. That would be my ideal. It would be Holland, KDB, and James Ward-Prowse. So let's talk about it from Southampton. They have 2 very, very, very cheap fullback strikers, potentially 3 depending on how they line up, right? And of course, now I'm on the road, just because I'm getting used to it, I'm completely blanking on the guy I even have in my holder right now. I'm sorry that I'm blanking the name, but he just moved over from Rangers. I'll think of it by the end. But he's 4,500. You also have Adam Armstrong, who's really interesting at 4,100. That's how they started the last game. I think both are really good options. The guy that I can't remember his name, this is so professional. So awesome. This is what you get when you put me in a car at the beginning of the season. Still on some pain meds from yesterday. But, yeah, just, God, that's going to really bug me. Joe Aribo. There we go. Thank God. That would have really bugged me probably the next 10 minutes of doing this. So Joe Aribo, really, really nice player. Scored the goal in the Europa League final last year. Good player, 4,500. They like him a lot. Or Adam Armstrong, both really cheap. There's plus matchup at home. Southampton's going to be close to the bottom of the table. These are the games that they have to steal 3 points if they're going to stay up. And a team like Leeds that's going to be fighting with them. So I really do like Southampton here. I don't mind Leeds side at all either. They also have two cheap forwards I think worth looking at, Patrick Bamford and Rodrigo. The best player for DFS on Leeds is Jack Harrison, who's going to assume, as we can see now, a massive role. He's going to become the Rafinha, taking him in almost monopoly set pieces. You might see Aronson take some. I would love him if he's a forward eligible, but he's mid only here. But Jack Harrison, definitely another intriguing option. But to me, if I'm going to pay up for Jack Harrison, I'm finding 1,000 more for Team Ward Prowse. I don't think the two really compare, especially the spot being at home. These teams' home openers are really a good spot to target. Newcastle versus Brighton, there's not a lot here I like. These are two good teams that I think are going to be playing pretty stokely. Pascal Gross, I would like. It would be like if DK did like dynamic slates, Pascal Gross would be like 7,500 and really like just like screw with you mentally. It's like, oh my God, like I need to fit him. That's too good of a price for a forward eligible monopoly set taker, fresh off of 2 goals versus Man United, but he's not. He's like 10K, and I don't think he really falls much into options. Solly March is a fine play. Like the rest of Brighton is just fine to me. I think Newcastle's pretty good. Newcastle definitely has one of the better midfielders in the league, and we don't talk about him, but Bruno Guimaraes, good back line with Trippier back. Trippier back is like a big deal for Newcastle. He really shores up the back line. Starting to look really good now with Pope, Trippier, Schär, Target, all of them healthy. You got a healthy midfield. So I just don't think there's not much I like in this game. Well, I'll watch it blow up now. But, Newcastle was pretty dominant at home last week. I think they have a good defensive team. And then Brighton, we know, is really well coached by Graham Potter. They have a lot of different options. And the guy that I want to play is Pascal Gross. He's too expensive. And so then I go on the other side, and I look at Trippier, who's taking he and Target are splitting, but both of them are pretty expensive. As a away dog, I don't need to fit them all. I got City here. I've got more important priorities. I got to fit City pieces. So there you go. Final game, Wolves hosting Fulham. Kind of a screw you to DK here. Not taking the forward eligibility from Raul Neto. I really hope that. Did I say Raul? Was it Pedro? I'm not blinking. Pedro Neto. It's Pedro Neto. Who's Raul and Neto play for? Anyhow. Pedro Neto, been a forward eligible for however long, and now all of a sudden it's gone. He would have been like the exact like the bait that you wanted. Like I think he's 7,800 as a midfielder, and you just can't even like consider him because again, find the 1,000 more for JWP at that point, or go down to like Grealish or those type of plays. But he's mid only now. I was like scrolling from that forward and he wasn't there. Just annoyed, as you can tell. But yeah, I think Nato, took almost monopoly set pieces for Wolves. There was no John Moutinho in that lineup, but I think he's a really strong player. I just don't really find him as strong as a midfielder. Rest of Wolves, Podence look good. He would be a good GPP flyer. I think Wolves is actually a half decent GPP flyer here. Just nobody will target them. And Fulham can give away goals. We even saw that in the championship. They gave away 2 goals to Liverpool when they were kind of, in a lot of ways, like had a really good shot at that upset. So, I think Wolves is interesting. For Fulham, they have one of the cheap piece that we really need, which is Andres Pereira, former Man United guy. Took all their sets, 4,100. To me, he's a lock and load if he is in. So that will be like one of the first lineup I'm looking for is for City, and then I'm looking down to the Fulham lineup to see if Pereira's in because he's going to make a lot of your City stacking work. I do want to make note too. Fulham plays with wingbacks, and Anthony Robinson and Tete are really aggressive offensively. They weren't as aggressive versus Liverpool because they had to sit back because of Liverpool's attack. I don't think they're going to have the same fear with Wolves, which is one reason that Wolves could be really interesting on the counter. But Tete and Robinson are both pretty cheap. I think Tete is like 4,100 and Robinson's like 3,600. I think those are really cheap fullbacks to take advantage of. All right, that's all 5 games. Hope that helped. Get your City. Look for the lineups. Look for value. I really think that it's an interesting slate. I normally hate City slates, but this one's just kind of it's kind of fun. I was telling Storm that I wonder if City Roulette is a lot less difficult because of Holland this season. That if City is such a dominant favorite like they are here, you just already know you're playing Holland. Like so much of the trouble with City before was their center forward. It was like, okay, I don't know who's playing center forward. Are they dropping back? They were interchangeable. You know, they were likely to be subbed for one another. It was like, do I really want to play Bernardo Silva there? Oh, they're tempting at this price. Like, Holland is that good and that dominant that now when like we see City as like minus 2,000 favorites like they are here, it's just like I'm gonna play Holland. So I think it kind of makes things easier. So I'm interested to test it out. You know, probably gonna be almost 100% Holland exposure across my lineups, and then just play around with the second pieces as I kind of discussed throughout. All right, that'll do it. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, like, subscribe, comment on the video if you enjoy. And with that, I'll say, see ya!